So, according to our assistant manager, so to speak, or we're on the air. So I call this meeting to order. The first issue is the Nathan Kaplan, and it's 300 East Second Street garage. And this should be pretty easy, but it got more complicated because do we need to have the county approval before we?
Well, it needed to be sent to the county, right, and so it's.
So we can't get final approval.
Correct, we can decide tonight and then, but it still will be pending on whatever the county
Whatever they
says,
decide,
which is.
okay.
Yeah,
Well, Kirk's on the county planning board.
yeah, I just wanted to make sure that
He told me.
you
I thought
were
it was
aware of
pretty
that
quick,
at the
'cause
beginning.
I was hoping to start next week, but he said, don't expect it.
Right.
So you can at least let us know, one, tell us about what you would like to do.
Yeah, just, there was a blacktop driveway, I'm putting concrete and expanding it a little bit, and at the end, I wanna put a 14 by 26, 16 by 26 garage
Okay.
that I got a pontoon boat, and I wanna keep it there. And the house is just, it's mine and my wife's, it's in both our names, and it's just strictly our own house.
Yeah.
And I've already had people, can you rent this vacation, the guy from those apartments and this and that, I'm like, don't even try. I
Yeah.
know the drill, it's my house, it's gonna be used for me only, maybe my kids. So,
Yeah. Okay, does anybody have any questions? Pretty simple.
it's gonna look exactly same siding as the house, we cleaned that house up real nice, and, I don't know, have you guys seen the house?
Yeah, it's fantastic, the back
Yeah.
deck and everything.
Well, you know, I would've done it nicer inside, but once Kirk took the house behind Maria's, that apartment building, and he kept that, I kept that house, so we separated them from our corporation.
Okay.
And we were
Yeah, there were a couple pieces of things in here that really we didn't need. The insurance thing, I hope you have insurance, but, you know.
Probably took me 30 minutes to do all of it,
Yeah.
wasn't much.
So there's plenty of space and he meets the requirements and it's,
It's
yeah.
gonna be less than 40%
Yeah.
coverage, including everything, probably 30%.
Okay.
It's a big lot.
It looks like it. Yeah.
Well, it's not like boat storage would be any different for that area, really, considering what's over the train tracks most of the year.
No, I just didn't want it.
Yeah, nope,
I
no,
want
no,
to keep it safe. It's one of those Sea-Doo switches, the
Yep.
newer Sea-Doos, and I just want to keep it nice as brand new.
Well, then you don't have to take the shrink wrap off and throw it away every year.
Right, exactly. Well, another thing is it's high. That's why I put on there 10-foot ceiling, so the garage could be 9 feet. Because the boat on the trailer, I think, is 8.5 feet.
Yeah. I don't have any problems
Nope.
with that. Alice?
No.
Ian probably doesn't know what we're actually talking about very much, since he's new. Essentially, he can, as long as it's permitted in that area, and as long as he meets the setback requirements, it's allowed. But the problem why he can't get it immediately is that it has to go, and Scott and I weren't sure if just a garage would have to be sent to the county, but it does. And so,
And if I made it, 250 feet, then it wouldn't even need to come here.
Right.
But I wanted a little bigger.
yeah,
So.
so I know we probably need to do the seeker for this. So we might as well, and let's see, neither of you knows what one of these is. And I probably should have gotten you a copy of one of them so that you have some idea. You wouldn't have extra copies, would you? I'm not sure if I do or I don't. But since I have not memorized, you would think by this time, in my time, I would have memorized all of these things, but I haven't. Okay. Well, here's the problem. I only have one extra. Oh, you have an extra? Oh, you have two? Good. well, since we can't really have a public hearing until we get the county approval?
We can. We've done it for years.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But he can't actually do anything until after the county approval comes in.
Right,
Well,
so you can make your approval contingent upon.
The county, yeah, yeah,
The reason I'm asking,
yes. Is that we haven't opened a meeting, to be at public, yeah. So it didn't mention on this, I guess we should do that then.
I'll make a motion to open a public hearing for the 300 East Second Street garage site plan review.
seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
So is that
Okay,
coming
now
back
that we
for a
know that
hearing
we
here?
can do this.
I don't have to come back? Okay.
Unless you want to.
No, it's okay.
But in theory, if someone had an opinion about it, they could have seen it
Yeah,
on the
like I say,
website and
this
come
is
in and
This
voice
is
it
simple
there.
compared to my other stuff.
Yep.
Last time I was in here, I couldn't even stand because my back was so bad and I had to lay out in that hallway. And I could stand for about 3 minutes and then I'd have to go back and lay down, so this is nice.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Okay, so, anyway, so we will, since you're the only person here and there is no public, it doesn't seem to me that staying open, I mean, not taking the final vote should wait very long. Because I don't think anyone's going to come here.
Yeah, I mean, we're supposed to have it open for a set period of time, right? To some extent.
We actually don't have to have it
Okay.
open for a set period of time. We'll wait a little while, make you sit here, but not too much. Okay, so we'll go through the seeker first.
But I don't have to wait for the vote, right?
No, there's no reason, actually, no, because
I-
you presented what you're here for.
Right.
We'll just finish the seeker and then it's kind of, it will happen after that. So will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation?
No.
No. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? Oh, no. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. Will the proposed action impact existing A, public-private water supplies, and B, public-private wastewater treatment utilities? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, or architectural, or aesthetic resources? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, for example, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No.
No.
Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. And will the proposed action create a hazard to the environmental resources or human health? No.
Is it heated?
No, I'm not even running. I'm gonna put a pipe underground, but I'm not even gonna put electric in there right now.
So,
I just hypothetically, if you was gonna put in like a coal stove or something,
Oh, no.
one of the items.
I could, no.
Just wanted to.
Yeah, that's okay.
Strictly storage, we're gonna see about, if we like it up here. We liked it, and then we didn't like it, and now we like it again.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion for a negative declaration of the seeker for 300 East Second Street.
Okay. So what that means, you two, is that we're, since it's not going to affect the environment, when you have a negative declaration, you're actually ruling positively in favor of what he wants to do. Okay. So, I need a second.
Seconded.
Okay. So all in favor of a negative declaration on this project?
Aye.
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 Okay. Okay. So, having said the seeker, that I guess we can move on to giving final approval.
Yeah, so we
but
agreed it's final contingency approval based on the decision of the county. And then we don't need to have them back for meet again. It's just, once that's done, our approval goes through final, so. so.
And is that at a hearing there, or is that just, it
It
probably
may or
will be
may
at a
not.
hearing, right?
The county gets to decide whether they're gonna do that or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you'll just keep me posted, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so you made,
Yeah, so I will make a formal motion of approval for it's a site plan review for the garage at 300 East Second Street, contingent on approval from the county.
Would you like to close the public hearing first?
Yeah, I was gonna do that right after, but within the same, if that's okay.
we can close it
We can
after.
close it first, and I thought, we were leaving it open until we voted, I thought. But we can, yeah,
It's kind of hard to take any comments or anything after you.
I guess you're right.
Sure.
Yeah.
yeah.
So you want to wait a couple minutes?
Well, we can close the public hearing and then vote.
Yeah, I think we just close the public hearing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I will now make a motion for approval of the site plan review for the garage at 300 East Second Street, contingent on approval from the county.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
All good? Great, thank you, guys.
yeah, except probably some paperwork somewhere.
I'll walk through it.
House looks great.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Frankly, that's the same glue we use
Yeah,
a bunch of places.
Yeah. No, it's right on where I walk my dog when we
Oh,
go
is
down by
it?
the water, so I've seen it,
I love it.
all the
Yeah.
I
iterations,
love
yeah.
it, it's quiet out there.
mm-hmm,
But yeah, we had a problem, all the vines, because that house hasn't been occupied for, I'm guessing, since the shooting at the courthouse, was it 92?
mm-hmm.
That's the last time, and the vines that covered the house actually went straight down through a pipe and followed straight down to the sewer.
Wow.
So it was filled with vines this thick, that sewer. I had this great guy from the Myra, he just got these things right out. We thought we were gonna have to dig up the road.
Yeah.
But he shot all the way down and it actually dropped straight down into the sewer there. So his camera, everything's perfect now, so.
Wow.
But yeah.
Wasn't a clay pipe, was it?
It was.
Wow, and it's still together?
It's not, there's only one little area about that big, about the size of a quarter. But the root is bigger inside the pipe than it is where it enters the pipe.
Wow.
And I think it was using that water to grow.
Yeah.
Because I think they were using it part-time, but I guess I didn't know the history on that house until
Sure.
until
Sure.
we started messing with the sewer.
I wish my sewer line had done that, but no.
There's a guy
Had to
I got
replace
who
it.
was unbelievable, and I actually laid down in there because I want to see what's in there, and we looked at every inch of that pipe. And I actually could go down and we saw right down into the town sewer there. So it's pretty neat. But- Well, thank you.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome.
Good night.
All right. Now, approval of minutes. Now, technically, even though you weren't at the meetings, you're actually allowed to vote to accept them, but it would probably be wise, since this is your first meeting, to not do that. That's would be my advice, since you have, and you probably don't even have copies of them, but, or do you? Yes, you do. Okay. Did you see anything?
Yeah, yes,
You've got them?
the 20, was that,
Yeah.
24th? No, the 6th of March. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, did anybody see any problems with the three of us who were here, did anybody see any problems with the meeting notes? All right, who's looking?
So in the, sorry, I should have done my homework more. In the March one, there's the comment that we closed on the sprinkler system for the 124 East Fourth Street. I just didn't know if we would added a comment back to the January meeting saying there was a concern about the sprinkler system at a
Right.
follow-up meeting.
So then,
Did I just miss it?
that was put in, and it's in the first paragraph. The only stated concern for that address was a fire suppression sprinkler system that the code enforcement officer will research and advise the board.
Okay. And then They would just have to then look at the next minutes to see what the resolution of that was.
I think he just emailed you, so that wasn't in a meeting.
Right, well, so in the next meeting, right, that's all I was saying, is in the March one, concern regarding sprinkler system for 124, minutes to be corrected and brought back for a vote.
Right.
So the
These
correction,
are the corrected minutes.
okay, and what was the change?
That's what I just did.
Okay,
The only stated concern was the fire suppression sprinkler system that the CEO will research and advise the board.
Right, but I didn't know if we wanted to add a comment that,
If it didn't happen in a meeting, I can't put it in the minutes.
okay,
okay,
so that's why I was confused by the March one that said the minutes would be corrected, since they're not being corrected.
Because they were corrected to note that there was a concern about the fire suppression system.
I see, not that
That
there
was the
was,
correction.
the correction was only that there was a concern,
Yes,
not the resolution of the concern.
correct,
okay,
And there's no record in any minutes of what the resolution of the concern was,
correct,
because it was handled via email.
correct.
Yeah, there's just a couple ALECs, but I'm not,
ALCEs,
ALEC.
where?
what does that mean?
Oh, it's my name spelled wrong, it says Alec.
Oh, that's important.
That's, I'm sure people can figure it out.
Oh, well, let me fix them.
I only saw one, but, actually, yeah, just one.
On
Yeah.
the 24th, right?
Yep.
Yeah. That happened to me once.
Retone. Two.
Yeah, they did, I can't remember what it was, I spelled my name wrong. Wasn't you.
Okay, so correction noted, and I'm just gonna automatically fix that one.
We don't need to vote on that one again,
No.
yeah, that's fine.
No,
Okay,
Yep, just to find and replace.
okay.
okay. So, need a motion to,
Yeah, we'll keep this train rolling. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from January 24th and from March 6th.
Seconded.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And they're just abstaining,
Got it.
even though they didn't say it.
No,
Okay.
11 and 12th Street, right?
Yeah, well, that's, okay.
Actually, I don't even know if we need to discuss that.
We don't really need to discuss it. I can just kind of explain it to you. And so this is, for those of you who are new, this is sometimes what happens, is you end up discussing something and then finding out that there's kind of it's kind of useless to do, but that's just one of those situations. So what eventually happened here, this was considering rezoning these areas, in part because we have a problem with a establishment on 11th Street that is, we won't be directly involved with, but probably something will happen at some point concerning it. But in general, I sat on when the zoning was updated a while, I was on the committee that set that up. And it was very clear from the public that what people wanted was that residential areas be protected from any kind of intrusion. And this could theoretically allow more intrusion into residential areas. So when we were talking about it, and the mayor was talking with me about it, we both decided that this was probably not a wise thing to do.
Change the zoning, you mean?
Yeah,
Yes.
change the zoning, especially in this particular area.
What, okay, can we maybe take a step back? So it's currently, what is it?
Currently MD, right?
It's an MDR, and the change was to make it into the mixed-use neighborhood.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was a proposal that we were going to discuss tonight.
Yeah, and so, but
And was,
it's very clear that also, since I have a neighbor across the street that's on the village board, this is not going to fly with the village board either, I don't think.
the rezoning.
Yeah, no, the rezoning for this 11th and 12th Street thing.
Is not.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So taking, I guess, two more steps back. So the business, there was issues concerning requirements for businesses in that zone specific to parking. And there were certain requirements that needed to be met for parking for businesses in that zone. And due to the size of a business, it would require a lot of parking, and there were opportunities for parking to be made, but there were certain requirements, mostly spacing, barriers, things like that, that we have required, is my understanding, and those have not been met. Scott, have been met?
They have not been met.
Okay. So currently, my understanding is that with its current zoning, that business isn't meeting the requirements for parking for that business. However, if we were to change the zoning, they would then be exempt, and that was the proposal, was actually to help.
Right, then the parking is allowed.
Then it's then the previous issues that were brought to the board for any business in that zone would be no longer applicable because the rules are different for the zone that's being proposed. But we are tabling this proposal based on direct information, direction from the
Yeah.
village board.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I personally don't think it would be a good idea. But anyway, because there was a problem before, and it gets confusing because of the zoning, a number of years back, the zoning allowed, how can I say this? It would allow kind of like mom and pop stores farther back or other businesses before like 25 years ago. And so we kind of got, and then all those places kind of went away as it was turned into residential areas, but it was still allowed in those back, just in the areas that were in back of the village center. And so that was changed under many years ago, but the remnants of that problem were kind of still there, which is why that VC area looks so weird, because it's got those little bumps and things, because at one point or another, there was something there that, was stuck into the village center area. So we don't really, the idea is we really don't want to revisit that again. It wasn't fun.
Well, it looks like the cutoff is Smalley Lane,
Yeah.
right?
Back there it is between 11th and 12th, but I mean, it doesn't get any better as you go down the street either. It gets really strange. Anyway. So, I think we should move on to the short-term rental cap review. I know something about it, but maybe you know more than I do.
Okay. Every year, the zoning, there's a law in the zoning that asks the question, do we want to alter the cap for the short-term rentals? And that's where this is coming from, and it was supposed to be satisfied or answered in January, and it hasn't been answered yet, so we still need to answer that.
Yeah, so what
I thought we were determining like what number we were gonna base it off of.
Well,
That's the
Or
question
is that
too,
part two?
because it was kind of.
So, well, I can tell you what the problem is. And the problem is that the way that the village decided to determine how many residential units there were in the village was probably incorrect. And it was probably at least a couple hundred too many residential units for what's really there. And so that allowed more short-term rentals to be established than should have been established. I spoke to one of the members of the village board, who just happens to be a neighbor, and I did tell them that we didn't want any part of this. And that, they were the ones that, we passed the law to set it at 8%. And if they have to determine that there are actually way fewer residential units, however they do that, then they have to figure out how to actually lower the number in a way that's reasonable. That's not up for us to do. That
Yeah,
makes-
I guess from my perspective, our recommendation was 8% and we want to continue that recommendation, but the village has determined that their method of establishing the overall number is invalid by like 100, you said? So what
Oh,
would
well,
the counting?
I've seen various numbers on it, I don't know. What I don't know is where it actually stands. So what's happened is that you can do it one way, you can do it another way, but I'm not sure that there's any agreed upon real number yet.
Right, so there's the housing stock, like the actual number of buildings.
Mhm.
The number of residential units is not equal to the number of residential buildings due to apartments.
Yep.
Right. So, and I believe we based it off of residential water meters, and there's only one water meter per building. So we were coming up with two different numbers based on what you used for the basis.
And we currently
That
are,
has not been resolved yet.
I mean, isn't, like, the census, like, isn't there a standard way to count a residential unit? Could we just use that?
Depends on, it seems to depend on who you ask as to whether
Right.
it's standard.
So that's the problem. Originally, I was the one that came up with what the percentage of short-term rentals were compared to residential units, and I used the emergency management numbers. And I asked specifically if they could take residential units, and he said, yeah, we can just accept, we can use that easily and get it. But the village chose to do a different method. I have no idea what the best method for determining that is. Originally, I just tried to get some kind of handle on how many short-term rentals there were and what percentage they made up of the residential units. And that was the best, that was easiest to do.
so my feelings are, as a board, we could make a recommendation, since it's brought to us, if we recalculate the base number and that 8% equates to the same or less, then we're okay with it. If something changes that drastically increases the number of short-term rentals, then maybe we want to take a look at it. But other than that, because it's just, we're keeping the 8% or whatever the number is. We're just trying, there's some math going on that's not clear that could change the total.
Well, if it is substantially lower, then from my perspective, the village has to figure out how they're going to tell some of those short-term rental owners that once their 2-year permit is over, they're not gonna be renewed. They have to figure out some way, if it's less, that
Yeah, I
they're
think
gonna have to pull them off the,
Or just because there have been some dropping out, if they drop out, then you just don't add.
Yeah, you
more.
just don't add new people.
yeah,
until-
well, you know what I mean.
You
I
can
mean,
be
whatever way they figure out that they're going
My
to
thought
do
is you
it.
could be grandfathered, and if you already have one, if you drop off, we just don't start letting new applicants in until we hit the number that starts.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know how they would decide to do that, but I left them with a distinct opinion that we did not want to get involved in that. Except for the general opinion that we don't want any more short-term rentals. I mean, but that would be. Except if they're although even that's not quite true, because in the new law, this is where it gets complicated, is that if it was in an accessory, if the short-term rental is in an accessory building at the back end of somebody's lot, we don't really care if it's a short-term rental. As long as the owner is on the property watching the short-term rental, that doesn't bother us as much.
And if it's in the same building, it's a bed and breakfast.
Yeah,
and
well, not
exempt
necessarily.
from the,
Yeah, so it doesn't really matter as much, but I just think we should stay out of this in general.
so
at
what
this
is,
point.
I guess, looping back around, so Scott, you put this on our agenda to talk about? What do you need from us tonight?
Well, basically, we just need to satisfy the zoning law for this year, whether we're going to adjust the 8% cap or leave it where it is. That's what.
So that's one item, and then the other item is the separate back, how we actually count it and calculate it. Okay. So
Yeah.
as far as the 8% goes, that's, I guess, up for discussion, so does anyone have thoughts keeping it the same?
my problem is that you can't determine until you finally get this number. Once you've got the number of actual residential units, and you can figure out how many actually there should be.
8% is easier for me to wrap my head around than like some are
I mean,
80 or 86.
I just don't see
know.
why,
It's like-
I mean, at this point, I would prefer to wait until they decide how many units there are and then see what what that means, how it affect it. And then, until then, there's not really much for us to discuss.
Well, I mean, if the intention is,
In reference to the buildings or the people?
Right.
Buildings, how many short-term rentals would be allowed? There can only be a certain percentage of all the residential units in the
but the
village.
idea with
But
that
residential,
is,
that's where we come into the
Yeah.
sticking point. What is considered a residential unit? Is like the apartment building considered one residential unit? Or is each individual apartment considered a residential unit?
for instance, just a couple weeks
You see where
ago,
we fall into the,
the
I think it's
house-
originally, when I was using the emergency management numbers, they were breaking it into apartments, I'm pretty sure, but I'm not sure. So they were counting the apartments separately.
well, I guess that's where we're asking for clarification on what you guys would like to consider.
I mean, I just,
Well, what's the definition in the,
I think we should be consistent with how we count them, right? So if we're counting
Yeah.
every apartment as one, and then we do 8% of those, that's a bigger number, but that also means if you have a house with a basement and 2 floors, and you're gonna make 3 short-term rentals out of that, even though it's just one house, that's 3 off the list
Right.
where that's coming from. So
Yeah.
if we're consistent with how we count things, but that shouldn't count as one, even though it's 3 short-term rentals, if we're gonna count.
An apartment's gonna soak up that 8% pretty quick.
Yeah, if someone had an apartment that they had a bunch of short-term rentals in, but also, if, I don't have a good grasp on how many multi-unit apartments there are that are inflating that number that then, because that's the downside, right, is if there's 10 buildings that have 10 units hypothetically, that's 100, and that's 8 more short-term rentals that could be 8 houses on your block. That's what people don't want to happen.
yeah,
Yes. Now you- yes.
And the 8% was arrived at just because it seems reasonable? Density.
because when I went through and used the emergency management numbers, there were 7.7% of the housing in the village was short-term rentals. So when the village wrote the law, they just rounded it up to 8
Okay.
for convenience sake.
And I believe that was based on actual housing stock, like the buildings, not the units.
Sure, right.
So,
That was a big sticking point when we were going through those committee meetings. Well, is it a unit or is it the?
yeah, I know, well, and then they pulled us so that we couldn't
Right, so
reach
So it
it.
sounds
So at
like-
the end, we didn't have the final say.
It sounds like 8%, as far as units go, would be each individual living area, regardless of how big the building is. Because that's gonna help keep that number under control, right?
Yeah, well, that was the idea.
Yeah.
Also, it was to prevent from my perspective, it was designed to prevent too many short-term rentals from popping up and then having, basically, then put themselves out of business because there's just too much supply and not enough demand. And there were and there was a fair amount of people taking older houses and then fixing them up and turning them into short-term rentals rather than turning them into regular family.
Well, I think also in general, it's just part of the plan, the comprehensive long-term plan for the village is we want to be a accommodating tourist village, but at its heart, like a strong residential area. So
Yeah,
if
yeah.
every house is a short-term rental,
Yeah, in fact,
you can't
that's,
do both of those things.
in fact, if you look at the.
But I do think so from what I've heard, and it sounds like people are pulling their permits anyway, that I think the Airbnb boom is kind of dwindling. And
So do I.
so I think it's probably less and less of an issue. But
How long is their permit for once they get it?
2 years.
Yeah,
2 years?
And this year was a 2-year, so probably all of them, or close to all of them, will be renewing.
And when they go to renew, we have to have a viable reason for rejecting that renewal, right?
Well, actually, there is, unless they've done something really wrong, the renewal was pretty easy.
Yeah.
yeah. Only if there's been public complaints about them. And so far as, the board has never met, there is actually supposed to be a board that will investigate if there have been problems with them, but I don't think that board has ever sat and done anything.
Very few complaints, so,
Yeah,
other than the lack of, the biggest complaint that I hear is just the lack of available housing.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
So, I mean, I guess so my recommendation would be, whatever that final number is, we recommend that the village keep that number, or if the math results in them lowering it, we're okay with that too, and whatever method they determine. But if the recalculation results in more available short-term rentals, then we would want to
Yeah.
hear the reasoning on the math, whatever that, I don't know what the number, do we know what 8% is currently? What the
No,
number is?
because there's no agreement on,
short-term rentals,
Yeah,
it's 84.
84.
Or is it-
Okay, so we're okay keeping it 84 going forward, and if it results in less, based on however we want to redo the math as a village, that's fine. If it results in more, then we want to hear the reasoning behind it.
And just curious, how many are on the waiting list?
There's 25-ish.
yeah. So I just.
Yeah, I just don't want necessarily us to make a blanket, like 8% is fine, and then we start going by, electric bills, and then it's 100 or something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I just don't. Anyway, we don't get to determine what the list is.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Is there a date when the board is going to figure out?
What we do is we put together our recommendations, and then it goes to the board, and then they get to vote on it. So, yeah.
So we'll put together a recommendation, we'll find of 8%, and then they have to go back and say, okay, great, and this is how, they decide how they're going to count a housing unit or a residential unit.
That makes sense.
Yeah. No,
I mean,
It's-
whether it's actually gonna happen that way, I don't know.
yeah. Yeah, once again, I don't think we can actually, in general, I just think that none of us would, we don't want any more short-term rentals, and less would be nice, but,
Well, I like the idea of fixing up old houses.
yeah, yeah. Although there hasn't been a rush to do that recently. I think that rush is over.
Okay.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything to say? Well, I just don't know how we can make any kind of recommendation until we know how they're gonna figure it out.
Well, did you like what Alex was saying?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
thought that was our recommendation.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah,
So all in favor of keeping the current number, or if the math results in a lower number, we're good, approved from a village planning board perspective.
Yeah.
If they want to increase the number, we would want to hear the reasoning and speak to someone from the village board.
And by number, are we meaning percent,
No, the count.
the count?
yeah, yeah.
So like, here's the difference.
Yeah.
If, every residential unit has its own electric meter. All right, there are vastly more electric meters than there are water meters, because there's only one water meter per building. Okay, so even if you have 30 apartments, that's where your numbers come in to make a difference. So if I run a list of all the residential meters, that's gonna be more than double what if I run residential water meters. So that's where the difference comes in.
All right, some point of count.
Okay.
All right. Anybody have any
I
disagreement?
need to check with you on minutes to make sure I got it worded right.
Yeah, that's fine. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah, what you said 84, sorry.
Say that again?
84 is the current?
That's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And we're actually have never gotten to 84, but that's the
Right.
number, yes.
And that's the number of active permits. So So there could be a lot of people who never got around to
Well,
listing it,
yes,
or,
there's, I mean, since this has been in controversial, I've been kind of dragging my feet, but we're at 82.
Mhm.
Or, yeah, 81 or 82 right now.
yeah. But are all those, actively available to rent?
No, there's
Yeah.
a couple that are still under construction.
Yep.
I think there's actually five or six that are still under construction right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity. Okay.
Village comprehensive plan. So, why,
We're actually not gonna be doing I was confused apparently, so what we need is someone from the planning board that's gonna be working on the comprehensive plan, but then there also has to be a business person and a person from the village board as well, I think, that's gonna be working on the comprehensive plan. So there's, we need to come up with I don't think that we need to decide that tonight, but at some point that committee needs to be decided upon to work on the comprehensive plan.
so we could choose someone to be our representative.
Yes.
Now, if any of you want to do that, it is very time consuming because there's a number of public hearings that you have to attend. And it might take, it can last a long time.
It can easily take 2 years.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, yeah, we're a small village, so it probably won't take that much, might not take that long time, but ultimately, you have to approve every little section of the document, and it's large. And some of it takes a long time, because a lot of it is figures that come from the county, and so it's not one of those things that you're making a long-term commitment. It's not just a short thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be willing to volunteer. I just was curious what the meeting timings and frequency would be.
She hasn't even set it up yet, and the reason we have to do this is your comprehensive plan is you're supposed to look at it look at it a little bit every year. But every 5 years, you're supposed to look at it and decide whether you want to change it or not, and it's been 12 years. So,
It's a 10-year comprehensive plan?
pardon me?
Is it a 10-year comprehensive plan?
No, well, you're supposed to tweak it every 5 years.
5 years.
That's what
So it's a
you're,
5-year,
But it's supposed to be renewed every 10 years or so.
yeah, and you're supposed to go through the whole thing
every
again.
10 years.
Yeah, so what happens is if you do look at it every 5 years, the process for redoing the big thing at the end is probably less. But we've waited a long time. So,
So no actions required tonight then, until we.
no,
get the-
but if you want to volunteer, I'd be happy to accept it.
Yeah, as long as, if it's 2 nights a week for 2 years, that might be difficult, but,
No, it won't be that much.
okay.
But a lot of the problem is that you end up with a ton of material you have to go through.
Sure.
And most of it is incredibly boring to read. But you have to, so that's the problem. And I do have a suggestion, this case, since you volunteered, and we'll just accept your volunteer. These are the goals. I don't know why.
Yeah, you
they're-
didn't, we talked about this, you didn't like the format.
I didn't like the format. I would like it a lot bigger, and they should have some kind of slip in the back that allows you to, would allow the people who are
Well, I think we can,
doing things to, see how we were doing on it, so you can kind of have a sense that you're actually following the plan. And it would be a hell of a lot easier for people who are planning projects in the village if they
yeah,
knew exactly what we were looking for.
Yep.
And that hasn't happened.
okay.
In fact, it wasn't printed in this format for maybe 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
Anyway, let's see, zoning law review, okay. Here we go. I almost forgot to print one of these for myself, zoning for the. Has everybody gone over the list that we had there?
Tom's list or something?
My Tom's list, yeah. There it is. Let's see. So Scott and I have gone through this. So interrupt me anytime you'd like it to. Oh, especially the first one here, you can explain that one, right? The accessory dwelling unit because of the ZBA thing, the ruling.
What are you talking about? Number one?
Yeah, page 7, yeah.
No, this is the Tom's list.
Tom's list?
Tom's,
Yeah, zoning changes. Yeah, there's 3 zoning files.
okay, so there was a zoning, at some time.
Appeal board, yeah.
23, there was a decision made by the ZBA that says that a single-family dwelling unit that has an accessory dwelling unit attached to it is not an accessory dwelling unit, which is kind of confusing, but I mean, to me, it's a duplex anyway, but that's what they decided. The zoning law, the ZBA decided that that's not an accessory dwelling unit, so, it doesn't need to be listed as an accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah, so this is just, this was simply a change that will, just to comply with the ZBA
Right.
decision. Okay. Page 32. Okay. Let me, this is, did you have your, this is kind of where you gotta look at your. Yeah. Now, the reason why we looked at this was because we couldn't understand, Scott and I couldn't understand why the minimum lot width would be 25 feet for a non-residential use, which could be, well, of course, would be a business or something, and we were trying to figure out if there was any business in the village that was actually 25, only 25 feet across.
It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
The hot dog thing, is that 25 feet?
yeah. Oh, right here?
No, I have an older version, the one I'm looking at.
Oh, okay.
Well,
It had 5 feet for the MDR in the version that I have. I have an older one saved, I don't have the new.
it should be 60 feet, just like the other,
The other,
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, makes sense.
yeah. I just couldn't figure out why it was there.
Yep.
So we just changed it to 60 to just fit with everything else. Because it's not the. Okay, next one. Ooh, page 123. Here's some of the easy ones. Okay. This isn't in any particular kind of order. Oh, okay, 123, section 3, okay. This is the, yeah,
This is for the A-frame.
yeah, this is the A-frame sign controversy, which most of you didn't have. Technically, under the old law, for some reason, A-frames signs are only allowed to be put in front of the main entrance of a building, business building. And someone, there was a woman down to the coffee shop, and the food thing is over here. She, isn't on the main street. And the main entrance to the building isn't, you know, the A-frame sign wouldn't work for her because it wouldn't attract people from the main street. So there was a big stink about that, and so the idea is pretty simple. You know, that as long as they can put it where they would please, as long as they get the permission of the person who owns the building, rather than, so it would allow her to stick the sign out in front here where people could actually see it and be attracted to the business, rather than just limiting it to the doorway that's down the street.
So I guess specifically, it says signs should be placed at or near main public entrances
Yeah,
versus what's currently written, signs should be placed at or near public entrance to a building to indicate most direct access? Is that?
yeah.
So the change, the intention of this change seems to contradict what you just said. Because that wouldn't be at, near the main entrance.
Yeah, well, but say, do you get permission from the owner to place it away from that? From the building?
Verbal permission, written permission, does that written permission get filed with the village?
So you're, sorry, I'm just, not to
Sure.
be pedantic, but
Yeah.
what you're describing right now is your fourth item on your list?
Page 125.
I'm talking about page
125.
123.
Oh, okay.
What is that trying to accomplish? Is it just
Oh.
a wording thing? I think you
Oh,
jumped
okay,
ahead,
oh,
that's why I'm-
okay, oh, I'm sorry, 123. Okay, S, I just put the S in there because some buildings like,
I see.
have two, they have a back kind of main entrance and a front main entrance, so they should be able to put
One on each.
one on each.
So then we shouldn't add the word main unless it's a version issue that I have.
Yeah, but there are, you know, some of the businesses do have back entrances, and I don't see any reason why they couldn't put an A-frame sign.
So the wording there should be, signs should be placed at or near the public entrances
Yeah,
to a building.
yeah,
Okay.
So
Yeah,
we're
I don't-
getting rid of the word main?
I don't think we need,
Yes.
because that seems to contradict.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
And then, yes, sorry, now that you're talking about the next item, an A-frame sign used by business and multiple businesses may be placed in area other than the main entrance with permission from the building owner.
Yeah.
And Barb's question is,
Written permission.
right, how much information, or how does that information get transferred to the village, rather than just somebody saying, yep, I've got permission, so. We wanna put that in here, I think we should.
Yeah. Oh, how to do that? I guess it'd have to be some kind of form that would, you know, to have to get permission from the owner and have to come to you.
Right, is an email okay? Do you need something notarized, like,
We don't need it to be notarized.
I'm just throwing something.
Oh, it needs to be notarized by Scott.
Scott's not a notary.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, to me,
But,
it should be written, either an email or on a form.
So just written, we're adding the word written?
Yes,
Yes.
it has to be a written agreement. I did well, that was part of the discussion.
And this is only for the village center zone, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I do worry about the wording of this because there are probably a lot of businesses currently on Franklin Street that have A-frame signs that are renting the building that they're in. Would those then require the building owner to give approval for the business that's renting? Like there's a sign in front of the movie theater that's not about the movie theater. It's the,
Mhm.
there's, I can think of a couple, Subway, I think they may own that, I don't know, it's 3 different buildings in there. They have a sign
Yeah, it's
around
owned by a
Subway.
different owner, yeah.
So just, the idea is the building owner, or is it, in this instance that we're trying to help, is
Yeah.
the owner of the building also the business that it's currently in front of? Are they one and the same? I don't know.
Yeah, they would be. I'll have to think about the phrasing of it.
Right, because at that point, I see where you're saying, you know, anybody can contact one of the property owners here.
And put a different kind of sign in?
Business that was,
Yeah, yeah,
and for that matter, it doesn't even say that the business has to be in Watkins.
okay.
But on the flip side, I mean, you can put a sign up that says whatever you want, I guess, freedom of speech. Not that I think you should advertise a building.
Well, there is a specific law that says it, you know, it has to be a business in the village. You can't have, you know, you can't advertise for someplace outside of the
Okay.
village.
Yeah, but the signing law is always a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
And you can't, no matter what you do, you can't figure out all of the circumstances. Yeah. I don't see, I don't know.
Wait, is this a big issue, I guess?
It has been. It's not right now, but it has been.
And it can be annoying.
All right, let me rephrase that. We've had one issue that
Okay,
has been a big hoopla.
Yeah.
okay, and so this would help
That's
fix
it, just one.
this one issue?
Yeah, well, only other problem we've had is there's someone who had an A-frame sign up and they're supposed to be taken in every night, and for a while, one person was not taking it in ever. Until they were informed that they had to take it in, at which point they leaned it up against the side of the building.
Well, and then you know, there's another question about, you know, because the A-frame, this was written a couple of years ago, and now we have a 24-hour, and if the business is open 24 hours, then does the A-frame have to come in and out because they're open all the time? I don't, you know, that's,
Yeah, except we don't have any business open 24
yes,
hours.
we do.
Which one?
There's a gym right down the road, it's a 24-hour gym.
Oh, okay,
They have an apron?
They have,
yeah.
he has currently, because I was, you know, harassing him a little bit about it, he has moved it so that it's not really in front of the business anymore, but it's kind of leaning up against the side of the business, and so, but,
That's one of the strange places that it's technically open 24 hours a day, but it's also, you have to have a code to punch in to get into the building. So it's not open to the general, you know, it's not open to the general public. It's open to the members, you know, of the exercise, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and based on the wording of this, can the sign be placed in the space between the sidewalk and the road? If the sign would be in the way of public?
well, it
Walking.
can't be in the traffic.
Sure, but it can be in that gap between, because otherwise it'd be in the way of
Right, but
people walking.
that's not how our, I mean, you know, again, the A-frame is, the way our zoning is written is, has to be taken in
Mhm.
at the end of business and brought out at
Right.
the beginning. And so, that's the question.
But I expect that problem will go away. Because that sign hasn't moved in 6 months, so I doubt that he's gonna move it.
Maybe it's not an issue, but it just,
Yeah.
you know, it was for a short period of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, to me, this sounds like really low-hanging fruit. If there's not even one scenario where
I
that
agree.
seems like it took way too long, and if this fixes the issue,
Well,
you know,
we're plugging the dike, that's all we're doing.
they need to be bigger.
Temporarily.
Just-
And that brings up to what's next? Oh, and this is
So maybe a way to cover it a little bit, because we seem to be talking from the business perspective. So it's saying an A-frame sign may be used by a business in multi-business buildings. Something along the lines of a A-frame sign may be used by a business for another business within the same multi-business building, as long as there's written permission by both business owners. So you kind of think like, I can't go put a sign in front of any business I want as long as they write me an email if I'm in the same building, but they can put out a sign.
yeah,
It's
well,
the same difference, but
Well,
Is that limited to the person that does own their building and the business?
it's just
Are they able to put out an A-frame sign?
I took the building owner out of it. It's just a business, if I own a business and there's another business around the corner of me, and I don't care if they want to put a sign in front of my business, if we're both okay with it, I can put a sign in front of my business for that other business. Whether I'm the owner of the building, whether they're the owner of the building.
I don't think that wasn't what the original intention was.
Because what's the?
It was just that some of the bigger buildings have 3 businesses in them, and so that was was the problem.
Right, and that would
That was
solve
the-
that problem.
that would
Because
solve that
if you
problem.
have permission from the person or the business that
Yeah.
you are actually putting the sign in front of because
Well,
yours is not favorable.
I don't think we're gonna figure out this, I mean, I'll try to rephrase, try to figure out a way to make this make more sense.
Yeah, I would take the building owner
Yeah.
out of it because I don't think that's required for any business that's renting, that they need permission from the building owner to put a
That
sign up.
complicate with an additional party
Yeah,
that doesn't want need to be
No.
involved.
exactly.
Mhm.
Like,
So what happens if the business, the one business says, no, you can't put your sign in front of my business?
then you can.
Yeah. It's fair, I think.
You know, let's say there are two coffee shops. They're
Yeah.
competing.
I think that's fair. Because if I was renting in a building and then a competitor rented in the same building around the corner from me, I wouldn't want them to have free range to put a sign up. But if our businesses are totally different, and it doesn't hurt me to put a sign up because I don't have one and they want to put one up and I give them permission, then I think that should be okay. Which I think is the exact scenario across the street.
Mhm. I'll have to think about it, yeah.
Hopefully the business
So
owners
they got
will come to some
permission.
agreement.
Yeah,
The
it's,
shop.
The traffic coming in and out is gonna benefit
Well,
them
actually,
both.
they get.
Right,
permission
exactly.
from the landowner.
Exactly, yeah.
Because the landowner owns that whole block, basically, so, yeah.
So they would have to get permission from the business owner where they want to put
Yeah.
their sign.
But it probably wouldn't make any difference, I mean, I don't think, they're not competing.
Well, I'll try to rewrite it, because that's why we're talking about it,
Well,
in a way that
So I'll
makes it more sense.
I'll send a note about our recommendation for the short-term rentals and I'll send you and the board a note about how I think that item should be worded to solve
Yeah,
this problem.
yeah,
I'll take that.
but when I'm doing something like that, I like to see the words on the paper.
Yeah, I'll send you something.
Or the email, one or the other, so I can
Yeah.
look at them carefully and go.
Just for the sake of
"Does this
time,
make
is
sense?"
there any
And we'll
other?
run it, we can run it by Alice, because she has expertise in this area.
So what's the item about the feather flag?
No? Pardon me?
Flag signs have been a controversy. We do have a law up and down Franklin that says you can't have a sign within 10 feet of the side of the street. So that basically means the sign has to go up against the building.
Mm-hmm.
And what people want to do is put the flag sign right out on the road, right out next to the road, because you can actually drive it into the ground there.
Mm.
And that's what the problem.
And that's currently not allowed.
Right.
And
In
it's
fact,
a
flag,
banner.
in fact, the entire feather flags aren't allowed, they're not
Yeah,
even
don't
approved,
Don't even have a listing for the feather flag.
yeah.
In the zoning law.
It's a safety issue, that's why it's been made that way.
Last summer, there was a lot of them on the way. And they've all been removed, and now, it just needs to get resolved one way or the other, because we don't, or we just don't allow them, that's all. That's fine too.
I mean, I think big wavy things over the road when it's really busy in summer, adding to I'm okay keeping, restricting them. I mean,
Yeah.
they're a distraction. I
It
think
is
if
very
it's
distracting.
safety, it's far more important than extra advertising, in my opinion, so.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people, then you're gonna get a business anyways. That's-
Exactly, yeah.
So
It's-
that's what feather flags, these are not like the open flag signs that people have, we're talking about those like waving, I'm selling grapes or something flags.
They're like big, tall, and curved, a lot of them just say open.
Right.
I think there's, I don't know if you can see one from here.
I think I saw one, because I walked down Third Street, there was one against, there's like a coffee one over there.
Right, she has one, yes.
So like
But
that.
hers
Yeah,
is
the
up
one that's
against
over by the
building.
coffee shop.
Right,
Yeah,
Flag like that.
but that is okay because it's against the building?
Well, it's not, yes, according to the zoning, it's not within that 10 foot of the street, so it's permissible, yes. But-
yeah,
But if you bend them.
but
then they
technically,
just fall, Come down.
feather flags aren't allowed, period.
Well, we don't say have anything that says that they are or aren't.
Aren't, yeah, yeah. Well, we have approved flags. It does say approved. We do have approved flags in there,
Okay.
but feather flags aren't part of it. And in general, I'm not terribly concerned, but it would seem to me that that they should be attached to the building, or at least if there's a fence or something more than just stuck in the ground. That's, and in the village center, you may want to restrict the size of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, we should just feather flag, like, it's not obvious what that is, so if we just have like,
Definition.
yeah, a height limit, then that covers it. You know, and then the A-frames are okay, but the big tall wavy, if it's a flag that moves, like a feather flag, that would cover a lot of things.
Yeah.
So maybe we wanna just come up with a way that's like, removable stationary signs not exceeding 3 feet are permitted. Any
The
other sign
problem
needs
is,
to be further.
I actually was talking to, of all people, Brian about it. Also, and the smallest that you can buy right now are 6 feet.
Which looks a lot like a person running into the road in the wind at night, so.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, I
just-
know, but the smallest one you can get is 6 feet.
Yeah,
But you could attach it to the building here. I was thinking in the center of town, you might want them to make it, put it up on the building, not just,
yeah, so I think if we're trying to adjust, if the goal is to adjust the zoning to make things more clear, less
Yeah.
ambiguous, and still meet the original intention of the law, we should just write it in a blanket statement without fancy names for signs, and just have a height limit and a distance limit and
Okay.
requirements around the A-frame.
Okay,
So I'm okay, I mean, again, 10 feet from the road, okay, you can put what you want up, as long as it meets the other requirements. But if it's near the road, I think there are rules about how tall it can be on corners, blocking line of sight for cars and things like that.
yeah,
So-
are those state laws though, or
That's village law.
Yeah.
village, law? Okay, yeah,
So there are already things in there about obstructions that we could just add some clarity to, that then would meet this, the intention of this addition. So-
yeah. Because technically, there's not 10 feet between
No,
the
so
building
that
and the center.
solves your problem then.
Yeah, okay. So,
That covers most of it. I would like to go over on the zoning law questions. Number one, the short-term rental renewals, it's just a little bit of a pet peeve of mine about right now, they have to redo all this information every 2 years. And all I get is a big box of old stuff that I have to save, and a big box of new stuff that is exactly the same.
Mhm.
And it just seems very redundant and unnecessary. And quite a few short-term rental people, not trying to complain because they want to keep their short-term rental, say that this is very redundant and unnecessary. So,
no,
but that's the way it is right now.
well, okay, the rest of it doesn't really matter, yeah.
Yeah, so I like your proposal, just expiring forms, insurance updates, full-time residents with a renewal application. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, unless there's been any change like in insurance or, if there's been any change in insurance per,
Yeah, or the
Information
building,
sub-
right? If
yeah.
you did some construction, opened up the upstairs, that's
Right,
different.
then
Yeah.
that's different.
Yep.
Yes.
but it would seem to me that you could just use that as just add it to the original paperwork.
Yeah.
There's no reason to,
Right,
you do, that makes sense to me.
Okay.
all right, good.
Okay.
All right, so are we not doing anything with the eliminate temporary signs or change?
Yeah, well, I was gonna come back to that.
Okay.
Scott kind of moved us over a bit.
Sorry.
Could you explain why you want to get rid of the temporary sign thing?
Because in the zoning, there's all these sign regulations that say you can have this, but you can't have that. And if you go to the temporary signs, then it says, you can have anything you want. As long as it's temporary, under 90 days, then you can have anything you want. And it doesn't make any sense.
Which makes sense to me. Also, it's, how can he regulate temporary signs?
Right, I haven't seen anybody have a temporary sign. They put a sign out and then it's there for the season at least, or
Yeah.
they don't, I don't even know what a temporary sign is. really.
And this is just
So
for
those are real
the,
estate signs, political
Well, yeah.
signs,
I don't regulate those,
construction signs,
but I don't,
that's what all those temporary signs are.
we don't regulate real estate signs, they're usually in the people's property, and so,
I'm
But-
just, you
yeah.
asked me what temporary signs are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and then, of course, we have the signs when there's the special things downtown and people stick up signs and stuff.
Yeah,
I
so,
don't see how we can,
Yeah, but those are, if they're
And
fine, if
how
they're
do
in
our-
people's property, yeah.
So are temporary signs also considered the banners, the street banners?
Not to me. I mean, those, you know, if they're out for a season, that's not temporary, that's for the season. And if, I mean, to me, a temporary sign, I think it says 90 days here, and that's not temporary. A temporary sign to me would be 30 days or less, you know, it's just, but again, the biggest thing is anything is allowed as a temporary sign. And so how do you tell if, okay, so it's only gonna be out there for 90 days and then they're gonna take it down? But, so why do we have all the sign regulation then? Get rid of all the sign regulation then, if they're gonna do that.
So on page 128, it says 30 days,
Okay, 30 days.
so 30 days, not exceeding 30 days.
Yeah. So, but it just, you know, but they do.
so it's kind of like, what we're kind of doing is just saying, we can't really regulate temporary signs if people put them up for a while, and so why bother?
Yeah.
so would
Especially
it be
when
helpful if we just add very specifics about what qualifies as a temporary sign?
Or just took temporary signs right out. Because if it's, you know, Barb mentioned the signs, but if they're in somebody's yard, then they're not, I don't even look at them. If they're, you know, I'm talking about, you know, signs up and down the street,
Yeah,
yes.
okay. But we're not allowed to put temporary signs in the space between the sidewalk and the road anyway.
Right, those can't be there anyways, you're right.
so that, it kind of makes sense.
And the,
Because
the intention is so that businesses can't put up signs that would otherwise be against the rules and just call it a temporary sign and get away with it. Okay,
Exactly.
that makes sense to me.
Yeah. Does it make sense to you, Barb? I'm waiting for your legal mind.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So would a temporary sign be a poster in the door saying, closed for refurbishments?
No.
Be opening in the.
Not in my opinion, no. I mean, that is a temporary sign, yes, but I mean, we do have a regulation that you can only fill in the window by 25%. So if somebody's going to plaster the window with signs, then, you know, that's not legal anyways. But if, you know, if you're gonna put a temporary sign in that, you know, we're having a sale, I don't even look at that. Yeah.
Because during the summer, you'd have no other thing to, you couldn't do anything else, probably. Yeah.
I would rather see temporary signs are only allowed for 30 days. And then if you want to further
Oh,
define.
just say temporary signs are only allowable for 30 days, and that's it?
But, yeah, if we did that, that's fine, but what it does
Okay.
is it allows everything. It says, it lists all this stuff that's not allowed, but it's okay for a temporary sign. And that doesn't make sense to me. You know, it's either allowed or it's not allowed, whether it's, you know, I don't understand why, you know, all these things are allowed as a temporary sign, but you can't have them as a full-time sign.
And as soon as we strike that entire section, something's gonna come up. And there won't be anything in the code to address it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that does, you're right, So it just needs to be defined better.
I mean, there is requirements for they can't be taller than 3 feet unless they're in VCCL or I, then they can be 6 feet. Only one per use. Can only be 30 days, and you can't do more than 60 in a 120-day period. So you can't do 30 days, take it down for a day, 30 days.
Yeah.
Can't be above the first floor. Banners, posters, pennants, ribbons, streamers, spinners, or balloons may be permitted as a temporary sign, provided they are in conformance with this section.
But all those things that are permitted aren't permitted anyplace else.
So eliminate that section?
That's what
Yeah, is it
gets
number
taken.
5?
Number 5?
Yeah, so eliminate that section?
Yeah, okay.
That would make sense. Okay.
So technically.
Oh, I already did.
Technically, if we remove number 5 and someone was having a birthday party and they put balloons on their mailbox, that would then be in violation, right? I mean, I'm just trying to be.
Yeah, but I'm not that active.
Right,
Well, it depends on how big the balloon is.
sure.
I mean, right, if it was out there and people were complaining about it, then I'd go talk to them about it. But if it's just out there for a couple of hours, it's,
Sure.
Yeah. So just eliminate 5. Actually, that's what I first did. I just crossed it all off. It
Yeah, and you
doesn't-
can have balloons that are, as long as they're not above 6 feet, 6 square feet of space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you
All
think
right.
of all these scenarios, Alex?
Well, this is why everybody hates signs.
Yeah, I just try to think of everything that can always go wrong.
And somebody will always look at this and figure out a way that they can get around it.
Yeah. Okay, so the proposal then is let's, section, oh gosh, what section are we in?
5.
Yeah, but it's 35.17H. Number 5.
Yeah, just eliminate that. Yeah, that's fine. That makes sense. Okay. And the last one's really just a semantic thing,
Okay,
because it just says, it means to say for the public welfare, but it actually says by the public welfare.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really pretty simple. And I didn't discover anything else, and if any of you have any desire to find things, you can feel free. Okay, I think that's, I'll write up something, and after you send your suggestions, Alex, and then I'll send it back out in a form that is a little bit more official than this. Like 1, then 2.
And then would that be something that we vote on next meeting, or we do that later?
We're just making a recommendation, so I can just send it out in an email, and then, we don't have to vote on it
I don't think so.
Okay.
directly.
So we just put it, yes.
Yeah, if you say, that's okay, or you suggest change this, and we all agree, then we can just do this by email and get it out of the way.
Yep.
Which I would prefer to do.
Okay, so when you do email,
I do.
there are rules and regulations regarding open meetings laws.
Yeah,
So if you get a group email regarding this topic, you must reply individually directly to one person, so that you don't communicate via
Oh, okay.
amongst all of you.
Okay, so don't reply all.
Do not reply all.
okay.
Most
Like I
people
said,
are like,
open meeting laws.
So can I send my recommendations for the wording on our recommendation for the short-term rental limit to all of us?
You can, but you don't receive the responses.
Okay,
Like, you can correlate them all through Scott
and then as long as no one replies
but
all
yeah,
to that,
don't reply all,
okay,
Okay.
because otherwise it's just another meeting in a different format.
okay.
You can solicit input,
Yep,
and that is
Or
all.
you, or yeah, well, that's why I call you a lot, instead of email you. It's just- Yeah,
yeah, makes sense.
Back to Scott's thing, or?
We covered most of your list now with the signs.
Okay.
yeah.
And the 24-hour thing,
I just think we leave that alone until it becomes a problem. Because it's only one business that's 24 hours.
right, but I think Scott's question was, the current writing means they have to bring it in, even though they're open, right?
Well, I mean, it's really not a problem anymore. He's
Okay.
taken it out of the way, so we don't really need to mess with that. If it just, when this was put together, it was kind of becoming an issue.
I see, okay.
I think it was one of those things where you might have had to get if he put a sign on at the time, if he put a sign on the building, then that would have required he go in front of might have brought in front of us, but the A-frame didn't require that.
Gotcha.
And so I think he was just trying to save money. So I don't think it really matters. It would be nice if you picked the sign up and hook it to the building. That would be nice. It'd also be safer for him. But, anyway. Okay, is there anything else we need to do? No. Zoning law, no. I think we're done.
35.1B3, that was the one thing we were just talking about.
Wait a second.
It's his last item.
35, the temporary signs?
That's what we
Oh,
were just talking
public,
about.
or the public welfare thing. But they just agreed to that, but, okay, it doesn't, I think that was 35.17. Yeah. And then at H5. I'll just go through this again.
Okay.
And were we going to put in, like, in the definitions, the flag?
Yeah, should we approve I think we should approve the feather flags. I don't think we have much choice, because people are gonna use them anyway, and I don't think they're a problem in most areas as long as they're attached.
Sorry, so we're gonna approve the feather flags?
Well, I'm not sure, it's up to you.
Alex had an idea of limiting it, you know, I don't remember exactly what you said, but limiting it by size and
And distance, and
distance.
to the
Yeah,
road. So,
yeah.
like, no sign can be 10 feet, within 10
Oh.
feet of the road and over
Okay.
4 feet tall. I don't know, what's the standard A-frame?
Yeah, they're 4 feet.
Yeah,
or-
so-
Or less. Yeah.
Right. And then that kind of covers us,
That'll
that if
cover
you can
it,
have the
yeah.
feather flag if it's more than 10 feet.
Yeah.
But I agree that a feather flag up against the roads, all up and down the road in the middle of summer is distracting.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's not really that helpful.
We can do it that way.
I don't know that I've ever seen one and gone into a business because of it, as long as you can tell that the business is open somehow. I don't think
Yeah,
it's.
and often the flags are so disreputable by that time that you don't even
Yeah.
really notice them.
Or you're looking at the wrong side of it and it's backwards. So
Okay, let's do it that way.
So you can have them, just they can't be near the road.
Yeah, okay.
So it can be 10 feet from the road, and how, what was the?
Yes, then
Right.
it falls back to whatever we have pretty strict rules about like there's size limitations and things like that. Like, yeah, you can't put a giant billboard on the side of your building. There's rules about lighting, like the light.
Right, it can't be lit anyways, I mean, you
Yep.
can, if it's on the side of a building, then it can be pretty large, but
Yep.
that's up against the building and it's.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
and anyway, we don't, we're just making recommendations, so so the village board might decide to do something different. Although I think their tendency to interfere with signage is probably going to be very low. Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
all right. So, I think, unless anybody has anything else to add, that we're done. So, could I have a motion to adjourn then?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, we're done. You just had your first meeting. Could be worse.
Do you want this paperback, Scott? Oh, okay.
You can keep it.
What does one per use mean for the temporary sign? One per,
One per business.
because for the, okay, or is it, so if it does apply to like, is it within